Nigeria is faced with more security challenges today than ever in the history of our nation. Boko Haram insurgency, armed militancy, kidnapping, cattle rustling, illegal mining and mineral theft, smuggling, nomadic breeders, farmer-herder crisis. I mean, the list just goes on and on. Nigerians increasingly report feeling less safe, which has affected travel and trade throughout the country. Complicating each of these security challenges are persistent issues of trust, especially concerns over corruption and abuses against civilians by security forces. To help us look at this in detail this morning, it's my pleasure to welcome a security consultant who is joining us all the way from Canada, Pastor Laddie Thompson. Good morning.
Morning. It's my pleasure.
Right. We also expect a security consultant to join us in the course of this segment, Mr. Sheyi Adetayo. So, Pastor, I know you are not on ground, but being a security consultant, I'm sure you are in touch with everything that's happening at home. How far do you think we have gone in this search to make our country more secure? Are we succeeding?
Now, that's a very interesting one because you will be my witness, and I guess if Channels TV would choose to roll out a lot of its old tapes, interviews over the past almost 20 years, because I remember the earlier days when we used to come for interviews in Ikeja. You'll find out that I have kept saying that until a doctor is able to properly diagnose a sickness, it is impossible to make any accurate or give an accurate cure to that sickness. So the truth is this, is that what is playing out right now, we saw this 10 years ago. What is going to continue to play out until we decide to diagnose properly and apply the cures to it, is that honestly, this is not going to stop. It has somewhere it is going, and if we continue to handle things like this, it will get there. I've always said to you from the beginning, it is not a local problem. It is a national problem. It's not just a national problem. It has its global roots. It's a hydra. We've said these things over and over again. And if you keep prescribing Panadol for somebody who has a cancer that is also complicated with HIV and Ebola as well, then you find out that each time we cry for people, it's crocodile tears.
But Pastor Thompson, at the end of it, at the root of it all is a cell. Cancer begins with just one cell out of 37 trillion in a human body. So there are those who would also tell you that no matter how bad the situation of insecurity is anywhere, it begins with just one locality. That is why you, security consultants and experts, tell us all security is local. It may have global proportions or dimensions, but at the root of it is just one cell, one locality. So maybe we should begin from there. Are we getting it right in terms of dealing with the base level of insecurity in the country?
Well, I wish complexity theory. I do wish that your delivery, I wish it was as simple as that, honestly, because if it was, it would be very convenient for us to. In fact, let me tell you something. We designated Plateau State as the final frontier many years ago when I was consulting for the government in Plateau State, when these troubles hit them. Now, let me tell you why you need to study complexity theory to understand this thing. Let me take you back to 2005. Tony Blair, if you remember, after certain things that happened in England, he said, whatever this thing is playing on our tolerance and our good nature. He said it exploits the tendency to guilt for the developed world, as if it is our behavior that should change. That if we try to work out and compromise with them, act on their grievances, they will just leave that evil. If we change our behavior, they too will change their own. Now, Tony Blair said something. He said this will be a catastrophic misunderstanding. Their cause is not founded on an injustice. It's a supremacist agenda. It was well thought out. It is well oiled. It exploits religion, wears religion as a cover. And the kind of fanaticism that's involved is not the kind that can be moderated. It cannot be remedied. It has to be stood up to. Listen, Tony Blair there in 2005 said, of course, they will use any cover, any matter of dissent within the structure of governance, of democratic governance. They will exploit it. And he says, look, what we need to do is to lay bare the devilish logic behind all these manipulations if we really want any proper results. So if we borrow from Tony Blair, you will find out that if we are going to face this thing, it is something that has been sweeping through the nation. It has an objective. Right now, it is concentrating on Plateau State for a reason. It can be read. It's predictable. The Fulani militia is rising again in its terror moves, and there's a reason why the Boko Haram sort of sub-pedaled a bit, although they keep making it known that we are still here. Now, don't forget that behind all that, the brains behind it is more of the ISWAP till day after tomorrow. So if anybody keeps deceiving anyone, I'll keep saying the same thing over and over. People are dying, and it seems as if somehow the nation seems not to be able to get a grip on what is going on. Listen, the recent attacks on Mangu, if you remember what happened in Mangu, the village, some weeks ago, afterwards go and get the right reports. You will find out that the people in the community began to contribute money to get their own defense because practically everybody there has lost hope, lost complete faith. Look, no matter how much, don't forget that media is a force multiplier. And that if we're not careful, the enemies of our nation will use our national media, even foremost media like Channels Television, as a tool to further their own cause if we are not careful. So trust me, if it was easy as that, let me get practical today. Let's get practical. When I was consulting for Plateau State, first of all, I feel for Caleb Muftuan, the governor of Plateau State. When it was a man who had been in the military, Jonah Jang, who had been in the Air Force, I recall very well how despondent, how confusing the whole thing can be when all of a sudden blood begins to spill all over the place. You don't even understand where it starts from. Now, I addressed their cabinet at that time, and I began to tell them something that, listen, except we mathematize the inquiry, we're going to continue to run on in circles. And I said to them that if they go back into their history, the last time the Bauchi Emirate launched an attack in 1873 in Plateau, they were able to resist. And since then, they have had this pride amongst themselves, the Taroks, the Afizere, that they believe that, they have about almost 40 sub-tribes in the Plateau. They've had this invisibility cloak that, we can handle all these challenges. And I said something to them, the drumbeat has changed. This is no longer the old threat of Danfodio's level of thinking. This is much more modern. This is much more concentrated. Listen, 1903 was when the Hausa traders arrived peacefully in the plateau. Don't forget that the colonials, the whites, came and settled in Naraguta in 1910. Now, if you go back all the way, you're going to find out that the migration, the mining towns, remember they always had mining towns in Plateau State? Go back all the way, mathematize this thing, project the modern developments. I think the only thing that was surprising that anybody never saw coming was 1978, when the Jamatu Izalatil Bidawai Kamatu Sunnah decided to place their headquarters in Plateau State. Now, anybody will tell you that if we look at all these things, it's not as difficult as that. I've kept telling you, go back to Justice Nikitobi report, 2001. Just go around and look at all the records. I remember while I was talking to the cabinet, one of the commissioners almost burst into tears. I think because I mentioned his father's name, Bitrus Manjang, who was slaughtered in their village. So I asked them a question. I said, what exactly do you think you are dealing with here? And when I broke it down, I was able to get them to see clearly that you are dealing with a hydra. And when you are dealing with a hydra, don't make the mistake of tackling one head of the hydra, because the other head of the hydra will bite you. Now, right now, the person that Caleb Mustang needs as a mentor right now is Jang. The reason why they are attacking Mangu more than any other place right now is because that is his base. Go and find out. And it's also, we're back again to the divide and rule. You are going to find out that they're even playing some psychological games on the minds of, look, the Biroms are the majority in Plateau State. But don't forget that you have the Afisere, the Tarogs, Angas.
If you can hear me, Pastor Thompson, it's very heartbreaking to even hear these things that you're saying. And a number of people will be wondering, is it so intractable? I think it was a few weeks ago, we had the privilege of hosting the governor of Tuang when the attack happened. I think it was after the attack of Christmas time. And he said there are communities in the state that have been occupied by so-called non-state actors, and that he needed to go see the president to talk about it. Maybe, as you said, it just beats me. We have military, we have police, we have the military, we have the police, we have all levels of security agencies in the country who are empowered by law to do certain things, take certain steps and all. So when I heard the governor in that interview say we needed political will to root these folks out, I was wondering what he meant. So what do you think that meant? Is it something that is empowered or enforced by government, that we should have non-state actors occupying certain communities in a state? Help us understand what that means.
His estimate was very conservative. The reality is that the amount of occupied territory that we have that have been renamed, and nobody needs to doubt this, because there are security ports that contain the new names that many of these communities have been renamed. Now, let us get practical, because people are dying, and we need to, at one point in time, we're going to realize that in a way, everybody's a victim. We are like playing chess with grandmasters, and we are, people who are not known for any strong architectural thought. So let me tell you something right now. That's why I said to you that Junior Jang is a Birom man. And at a time like this, because he's in the same party, I'm above party politics, but I'm told that he's in the same party as, I think he should be in the same party as Caleb Mustang. The first thing they need to do, if they want to make any progress right now, is that Caleb Mustang needs to understand something. People claim that everything rises and falls with leadership. It is not true. Everything rises and falls with effective communication. They need to put that principle in them. When I addressed the cabinet in 2008, these were the kind of things I spoke to them there. These are not the kind of things one should be talking about, but it's becoming too painful. Now, when he realizes that effective communication is the key to the solution for his own territory, which we can make the final frontier, the first thing I think they need to do is to get the cooperation of a man like Johnny Jang and the Biroms, who are the majority, and bring together what I call an intertribal protocol of understanding, sign an MOU, so that all the 40 plus other tribal nations within the plateau will come together as one entity. If they cannot do that, the gaps keep being exploited. It is being exploited as I'm speaking right now concerning sentiments. Number two, he said he was going to go and see Mr. President at that time. Let me tell you the truth. He has to go and see Mr. President truly, because the Mr. President in many ways is a unique fellow. I have to be very frank with you when I want to say something right now. In the game of chess, if you play chess, you know that people who play what they call the Caro-Kann defense, the Sicilian, Scandinavian, Italian, King's Indian, Queen's Indian, and all that. The president of Nigeria is a man who has mastered something known as the Nashdorf. Nashdorf is the most complicated system to master in chess. But somehow, I'm saying this figuratively, the president of Nigeria who, I mean, of course, I have my own objections, but we cannot take it away from him that he has mastered certain things. Now, I believe that what the governor needs to do is to get a team together and to be able to get to the Mr. President to lay open what the real story is. And I know that it may be difficult for someone like Khaled Muftang to get to the depths and intricacies of this, but he should be well prepared because the president will listen, because it's going to come back and affect him later on. Now, to be frank, Plateau States needs to sit down, and after they get together, remember that the solution to some of these things is not just local. Okay. It's not just local.
Okay. We've since been joined by Dr. Sheyi Adetayo, security consultant. Good morning.
Good morning.
And congratulations.
Thank you.
I see you are now a doctor.
Thank you.
Okay, let me start from where I started with the question that I asked Pastor Thompson to begin. Do you think we're making any progress in our search to secure this country?
Okay, so I listened. The word you used there was success. Are we succeeding? Yeah, that was the word that you used. And I can say not yet. But are we making progress? Yes, albeit very, very slow progress. The problem is that we fail to understand the enormity of what we have at hand. And I've been shouting this. It's just about what we read, what few people are able to talk about. Nobody has really come out to let Nigerians understand the enormity. I remember at the height of Boko Haram, I was saying, tell Nigerians what these problems we are facing, what we need to do. This battle cannot be won without Nigerians' involvement. You need the people, and the people cannot fight a battle they don't understand, because they need to know how to prepare, what level of involvement are they going to be, and then what areas that government actually needs their support. Until we come out and lay it bare. It's
Which
not just
actually
about,
tallies with what Pastor is saying about communication.
and see, most times it's about, okay, we don't want to scare the people. The news are there.
We are
People
already scared.
So people are scared. We really need to actually talk about this. And it's not about organizing a national conference and bringing people that have lost touch, or people that are just come and start giving us theory. It's not about theory. It's about bringing the real principal actors, those who understand the problem, and let us talk about it, and let Nigerians understand. See, issues in Plateau, insecurity in Abuja, growing insecurity in Lagos, there are different factors, but something is common. So one common solution. Our criminal justice system is one of the most terrible in the whole world. We are gratifying criminality. We are making crimes to be attractive. Imagine, just yesterday I read 2 people were sentenced in the Kaduna court for internet scam, 2 years imprisonment with option of fine of 150,000. Now, the money they swindle the foreigner is actually much more than the offer of, the fine being pushed forward. Now, what message is Nigerian court communicating to the young ones there? Go ahead and make sure you still big money. They will give you offer of fine, you pay peanut. So all I need to do is just set aside 1 million naira. And then I go out and commit the crime. But when the court, I say, okay, take the court won't give me more than 200,000, 500,000 fine to pay, and I'm off the hook. We need to look at the kind of communication. Again, what we are communicating in terms of our law, in terms of our prison system, in terms of our law enforcement. You see, former President Obasanjo, when he came to power in 1999, came up with what we call grand strategy for national security. It's important that we need to actually revisit the document. It's a document that takes care of all we need to do to ensure that we have a secure country.
At the heart of whatever document it is people.
Of course.
More than once we have heard that, quote and unquote, powerful politicians are behind a host of insecurity issues that are being raised. Former governors in the north made that comment. In fact, I think it was the governor of Zamfara State who said that there are powerful forces that are fueling this insecurity. The current Minister of Solid Minerals has said more than once that powerful politicians are behind, illegal mining, which is fueling some measure of insecurity in different parts of the country. So, what needs to be done there, or are we just palliating are we just papering over cracks, to quote my colleague? Or is there something so, because when you talk about the criminal justice system, it is people that came up with the law. It is people that will execute the law, that will enforce the law. And it is people that are making the system vulnerable. Are there people who are exploiting the weaknesses or the loops or the gaps in our systems?
Okay, so it's not the first time that we're hearing about that. Remember the late NSA at a conference, that is the one that died in the helicopter crash, said, oh, it is certain political party with the leaders there, we are behind the problem in Nigeria. And several other people at that level have come out to but the issue is, has anyone been prosecuted? Have we done anything to bring anyone to book? I'll give you one example now. Something happened in Ibadan. Bomb, explosives, explosion in Ibadan. Now, the people involved said, oh, we are operating legally. Yeah, there's one thing for you to have a license to operate. Another thing is for you to comply with, existing regulations on storage of explosives. Who are those responsible for checking, monitoring explosives being used by miners? Have they been brought to book? Will they be brought to book? We've seen several ones that happened in the past. Nobody is prosecuting anybody. And if you're not making examples, see, the reason why we see the United Kingdom, the United States, Canada, they are, functioning because of the rule of law. Nobody is above the law.
Okay.
You offend, you are punished. You see, I will always appreciate President Obasanjo for one thing. When it comes to taking certain actions, when it comes to security, he doesn't waste time on issues around that. And that's to bring me back to that. You remember when Plateau issue was at its height then? It was during the Obasanjo era. State of emergency was declared, and certain actions were taken to actually kill the problem as at that time, before, after successive government, the problem started rearing its head again. There is a time when we need to take a decisive action. For now, anything short of state of emergency on security in Nigeria cannot solve this problem.
Okay. Pastor Thompson, let's talk about kidnapping, which is also becoming quite rampant. I mean, it's all over the country now. It's not confined to any particular state. I think it was last week or so, some high-up person said that a lot of this was happening because of poverty. These kids see the opulence in which the leaders live, the amount of monies that are stolen, which then shows them the stark reality of their situation and how hopeless their situation is. And they now try to make their own attempts at getting rich by kidnapping people and asking for ransom. Do you agree with that assessment of the reason for the widespread kidnappings that we have now?
Well, I want to tell you that the average Nigerian is a good person. And sometimes when I listen to these things, if not that I've spent about 30 years in the field, watching the trickles of blood on into torrents, I honestly sometimes would want to keep quiet. But when I think about families that are suffering from all these things, What we're dealing with is opportunistic. It collapses nations from within. The kidnapping aspect is just one of the things it is exploiting. Because when you go and look at the patterns of kidnapping and you study things very well, in fact, let me agree halfway with Mr. Adetayo. Because even when General Obasanjo became president, I would tell you that the document he used then, the president himself will tell you that he has since then been on a learning curve. I recall having a meeting with General Obasanjo just afterwards when I said something to him that, listen, even during your time, X, Y, and Z was building up. And that I'm not saying that you're not going to disagree, but as time goes by, it will become evident I was in his home. I had a meeting with him. Now, the truth is this. Some years later, after he went for a meeting in East Africa, he came back to Nigeria with a more robust understanding, and because he's a man of action, he began to demand for certain things. So I'm back again that if we really love our country and we love this nation, I have said something. We, from the church community, we are the first in its line when it first landed in the country. So we've had a longer time to study it, but we realized quickly that it was not just against the church, it's just exploiting the divisions that we have in religion. And so if we really want to get this thing right, we need to stop, quibbling and running after red herrings. We need to have a more robust understanding of what we are facing. And I've told you something, even during Jonah Jang's tenure, go and find out how we brought the temperature of Plateau State down. Effective communication is the answer to this thing. Because what this thing is doing is that it is exploiting all the gaps in the country. I'm insisting that the governor of Plateau State needs to get certain elders, work with them together, people who understand this thing very well, and paint an accurate picture. The president has advisors. By the time we look at where this thing is taking Nigeria, I can assure you that I said something about the Nigerian president. He doesn't play Sicilian defense. He has mastered national, the most complex of chess strategies. You will see a change of policy. But if we don't effectively communicate to him what he's really up against, don't forget that on the way of his political ambition, there are many compromises that have to be made. I will never forget, was it 2019, around July, when Fashion was his daughter died, and when the present serving president at that time was still looking forward to his ambition. I remember his speech then when people were shouting, oh, the Fulanis did this and all that. He said, look, I'm extremely concerned about security and I don't want any stigma. I can go through the history of kidnapping in Nigeria. I remember his words. He said he can go through the history of kidnapping in Nigeria and you know where it all started, and there are a lot of copycats. And they said, look, what of Evans? How are you sure it is Fulani? Now he is president. He is now a sitting president. And I believe that as a good chess player, if the reality was brought to his table, not only from the local perspective in Plateau State, the regional, the progression that is national. Let's not forget that. Let's not be fooled by people coming to try and pull, we've kept trying this palliatives, they are not working. Now, if Mr. President gets a proper picture of what this is, I am now sure that this president has what it takes to understand the finer details. Because you are dealing with something that is so intelligent, you would not believe how intelligent it is.
Are you assuming by any chance, my apologies, Pastor Thompson, are you assuming by any chance that the president is not fully aware or fully abreast of the facts?
Honestly, let me tell you something. First of all, don't forget that every politician thinks about the next election. It's statesmen that think about the next generation. And whether you like it or not, ambition often blinds the vision of men. Now, what I'm banking on now is the fact that now that Mr. President has achieved his ambition, he should be thinking about his legacy now. Now he has advisors. I believe that it is difficult for him. There's no background that he has that has to do with security like this. Even though while he was in Lagos State, some of these things tried to rear its head up. And I remember effective communication. I don't think of statesmen putting heads together, knowing full well that there has to be a future. I keep saying this is where I miss people like Elder Ahmed Joda. In the few times I had the opportunity to sit at him with meetings and I listened to him, these are the people who kept a hope in us that we really can have a future in Nigeria together. We are stronger together. We can make it. It's only that we need a higher level of architectural thought to get the right vision, give value to human worth for each person, and then we can talk about the Nigerian problem. But people are talking about this terrorism problem. We better put on our thinking caps.
Okay. I thought I was the only one that always talked about the communication on these matters.
Doctor, in the course of this week, a former Minister of Communication actually came out and said during an interview that there were systems in place where kidnappers' phone calls can be tracked so that they can be dealt with. But the security forces were not using those systems. What do you make of that kind of statement?
I don't think that statement is correct. Though I didn't listen, but that statement is not correct. 100% false. It's not possible when you equip the security agencies, you train them and they will fail to use it. That's not true. Let me share what I understand. See, you have a situation where an organization like the Nigerian police, with 36 state commands, with FCC 37, ask how many tracking equipment in the possession of the Nigerian police? How many cases of kidnapping are they receiving on a daily basis? How many teams, even in Lagos here, we have a situation where the state government had to purchase equipment for the security agencies here in Lagos State to support what is coming from the federal. I know at some points that an agency like the police had issue with subscribing to some of the software that they had, but that has to do with an internal issue within the Nigerian police. But the point is, for any security agency in Nigeria to succeed, each state should have nothing less than 10 of such equipment. And a state like Lagos, with 20 local governments, should have nothing less than 20. How much are we investing into security? How much are we investing into campaigns? How much are we investing into jamborees? The money we spend, you see, there was a time in Nigeria where a governor would spend 10 million to do a project, and when they want to commission, they spend 100 million to commission a 10 million project. It's winding down gradually, but we're still having it, in some places.
Well, that's understood, but what Alero is asking you is something that we all, as Nigerians, were bamboozled into, so to speak. You either register your identity with NIN and match your join your name with your SIM card. And part of the advantages is to use it as a security tool. That minister is saying that that system is in place, but security agencies are not using it. That kidnappers still make calls and still get ransom.
What the said minister didn't understand is they say there's one thing for you to read briefs. Another thing is for you to sit with the people on the field to understand the complexity of all this investigation. Criminals are now moving away from the traditional, means of collection or communicating, We've seen where they are using WhatsApp, they are using, what is the other one, other popular one, Telegram and the rest, to communicate. And now, these are applications that are not honed by Nigerians or Africans.
They're encrypted communications.
They're encrypted communications. And the selling point of these apps is their inability to be broken into. That's what they are selling. And there are technology companies, I don't want to mention their name, that are working every day to break into those codes. The moment they're able to break it, they prepare equipment and they sell to governments so that they can break into it. And the more they are trying to do this, the owners of the app are also introducing new, updated software.
Okay,
so that is why you see countries like UAE banning WhatsApp calls. So people try to circumvent that by doing voice. They do voice recording to change. And see, this is started when BlackBerry refused UAE to have access into, its server to be able to, investigate some, and they banned BlackBerry. See, for us to be able to do something, there are certain decisions that the government will need to. They are going to be unpopular. Decisions. Younger people are going to protest, but that's why we need to let the people understand why certain things has to be done. And then
we've run completely out of time, but I still need to take one sentence each from both of you. Pastor Thompson, so what do the poor, long-suffering people of Nigeria do to secure themselves?
Well, the long-suffering people of Nigeria need to know that to do nothing is to end up dying. Our nation will die a most painful death. And so we want to be motivated. We need to be able to, we know that poverty has been weaponized. The nation is divided. But there are still enough people across the entire country who know that if we can just get the right people to come together and to help us to diagnose properly the proper levels, tackle the immediate issues that are threatening the sovereignty of the nation, but much more beyond that, let us tackle the systemic problems we have so that we can lead a prosperous nation. Then that will work for all of us.
Okay, mine is very simple. We need to show the people how we want them to live. Our criminal justice system, we need to do something about it. Finally, Nigeria needs to declare a state of emergency on security right now and begin to take that hard measure. Let the people know why it has to be done, and Nigerians will cooperate with a government that they understand.
Dr. Seyi Adetayo, security consultant, who was with us in our studio in Lagos, and Pastor Ladi Thompson, a security consultant, who joined us virtually from Canada. Thank you very much for coming to share your insights with us this morning.